Hey folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier back at the homestead here. If you happen to be tuning in live, happy New Year's Eve. It's 1 o'clock in the morning on New Year's Eve, which basically means we have 23 hours until the big ball falls or rises or whatever the ball does, and it's 2024. Now, for the pro wrestling fans in the audience, I'd say stick around. We have a nice conversation coming up. Your comments are welcome. This is interactive. And for those of you that are not pro wrestling fans, I might forward you over to One Man and a Camera Films. My new short film, Many Keys, is up. Or you can go to One Mike Messier YouTube channel for my film reviews. Just saw The Iron Claw and a bunch of new stuff. Monster, very interesting foreign film for those in the States. It's foreign for people from the country of which it was made. It's not foreign because it's their country, I believe Japan. Great movie, by the way. So for those of you that are wrestling fans and you're just tuning in, you can share this link. Do your buddy a favor, which would be me. Copy and paste your URL up top and send this out to the world. But let's get going here. So basically, this was the show. This was AEW World's End, first time pay-per-view. I believe it was from Nassau. It was from Long Island. I have some friends up there. Monty and the Pharaoh were up there. I have other people. Evan Ginsberg's up in the New York area. So, very good crowd. I thought the crowd tonight in Nassau was very receptive to this show. I thought they were actually pretty forgiving and pretty enthusiastic for some of the matches that weren't that great. Namely, I always have a hard time saying her name. Abaddon, I think I got it this time. Abaddon and Julia Hart, in my opinion, was not a great match. It kind of picked up towards the halfway point until the end. Even the moonsault at the end, Julia Hart, I don't think she really nailed the moonsault, but look, she's doing great. She's 22 years old. She's really refined this heel House of Black version of herself, but I don't think this match was particularly good. It actually reminded me of a match from a long time ago, Barry Windham versus Bam Bam Bigelow at Starrcade, 88, which was actually December 26, 1988. I think on this channel, the Mass Wrestling Fan's going to do a video about that show. But they Abandon or Abaddon Julia Hart match, it just seemed like it was not a good mesh of styles. I think it's because probably that match would be better served if Abaddon was the heel and Julia Hart was the babyface. But Julia Hart's doing great as a heel. Abaddon's kind of the babyface by default. The crowd really gave this match a lot of love with "This is Spooky" chant, but I thought that the match was sluggish. I don't think Abaddon did much as far as offense. She kind of just sat there and took abuse. They tried to do some gimmicky type of stuff. I don't think it really worked, at least not for me. If you have other opinions yourselves, you can comment or not. By the way, folks, if you happen to be seeing this on Twitter or YouTube or Facebook, however you're watching, you actually have to go over to the YouTube channel to make your comments heard. Because if you're on Facebook watching me, you might be commenting away, but I can't see your comment unless you come over to the YouTube One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan channel. For those of you that might be subscribed to this channel and you're not wrestling fans, that's because this channel used to be subscribed to Mike Messier YouTube channel, and then I broke up all my stuff. So now all my film reviews are on One Mike Messier. My own films are on Man and a Camera Films, and my art is on One Artist Mike Messier. So let's look at this show. I saw the movie, I went to the show, so to speak. I went to watch AEW World's End, December 30th, 2023, in the local movie theater. That's one thing that I've really enjoyed. Different theaters have done that around here. I think Regal Cinemas actually had one pay-per-view this past year in their cinema. I guess that was a one-off. Cinemark used to do this. And AMC still does it, although they've kind of, tonight they had it in two theaters. They had it in Orange Park and they had it at Jacksonville AMC Regency. I went to the theater that I thought it was a better fit for me as far as the driving, the parking, and the overall enjoyment. So I had a good time. There was not many people in the audience tonight. I think there was a total of maybe 5 or 6 people. I reserved a seat for myself in the back row. When I got there, there was a couple of teenagers somewhat near my seat. They looked to be on somewhat of a date, and when they saw me coming, they kind of took off. So I have a feeling they were hoping to use the empty movie theater for their own consenting activities rather than enjoying pro wrestling. So anyway, good for them. Take precautions, children. But in any event, let's look at this card. What did we have? The show started. The first match that I saw, I was actually parking my vehicle, and even at like 6:45, or I guess this was right at the 7 o'clock hour, they had a half hour, 6:30 to 7 p.m. Eastern of free stuff, just talking and promoting. Then the 7 o'clock hour was basically the free hour, and they did have, I think, 3 matches. The first one was Chris Statlander versus Willow Nightingale. This match was longer than I thought it would have been. This was about 15 minutes of activity. I guess it was a babyface versus babyface women's match. Chris Statlander is in a little bit of a slump here. She's lost her women's championship, her TBS championship a couple of months ago, and now she's kind of back to mid-card mania. She had that big victory over Jade Cargill, and then the rematch victory. She had that title briefly. She's lost the title, and now she's just kind of slumping again. And Statlander is really a woman that's been with AEW basically from the beginning. She is quite popular, I think, and I think that she's very solid. I think the thing that with Statlander that maybe is going against her, she's kind of been cursed with injuries, and I think that maybe the higher ups at AEW, Tony Khan and whoever else, they don't want to put the title on her for too long or put her in big storylines because they're afraid that she'll get injured again. And what can you say? So, I mean, I was kind of surprised that Willow Nightingale got the pin here. Willow Nightingale got the victory, the clean victory in this babyface women's match. There was the manager guy was at ringside for this, kind of, scouting out Statlander. It seemed like the manager guy, was it Stokely? Was that who it was? He wants to manage Statlander. It was kind of scouting her out. So maybe there's a heel turn for Statlander. So sometimes when you see wrestlers about to make a heel babyface turn, they'll lose some matches that you think they might win because they're basically finishing up their reign as a heel or a babyface, and they just put somebody else over in preparation for turning. So Willow Nightingale, look, I'm not the biggest Willow Nightingale fan. I'm not opposed to her. I just don't see the big appeal. I don't see the big upside with her, but people seem to like her. The next thing was the winner gets a TNT Championship match, 20-man Battle Royal. Another one of these AEW Battle Royals we've seen literally since day one, even with the original All In. They had, I think, a Battle Royal on their pre-show. So Battle Royals, just traditional 20-man Battle Royals, are pretty much a staple for AEW big shows. This one, the winner gets a TNT title shot at any given time. So basically they're copying the Money in the Bank stipulation that the winner of this Battle Royal gets a whenever, wherever type of title match contract for the TNT title. So whoever wins the Battle Royal can cash in and get their TNT title match against the winner of Edge versus Christian at any given time. Now, they didn't say that the winner of this Battle Royal could cash in and face Christian before he fought Edge tonight. They didn't put that in there, but I guess that was part of it. How did I feel about this? Well, it was kind of nice just to see some of the old school AEW guys in this thing. It wasn't all man's Battle Royal. It wasn't intergender. We saw people like Lance Archer. We saw the Butcher and the Blade. Haven't seen them in a while. I haven't been watching religiously the Dynamite show, so I don't know if some of these guys have been on. Kip Sabian is an interesting case. I mean, I believe he married in real life the Penelope wrestler. Sabian, I thought they were going to do something with him. I mean, I think they gave him a year off, and he was wearing like a paper bag over his head. But Kip Sabian, they've not really done anything with. And to be honest, it seemed like this Battle Royal was consisting of people you think might have been fired. I mean, I'm surprised that Sean Spears didn't come out and hit everybody over the head with a chair. Because these were a lot of guys that are just not really being used very well or very often. Danhausen was in this thing. I think he got down to the final four. Kill Switch, which is the former Luchasaurus, he ends up basically winning this thing. Trent, another storyline in this thing was Trent Beretta basically looked like he turned heel on his buddy Danhausen. Like they did the hug. I'm not sure if what's his name, Chip Jones or Chuck Jones, the other best friend guy, is he injured? What's going on with him? But in any event, you know, it was a decent enough battle royal. I mean, I think it was interesting that Trent, if he does turn heel, that might put something under, you know, do something with him, because he's the only guy of that, besides Orange Cassidy, of that little troop, who seems like he kind of takes the stuff seriously. I guess the one that I'm talking about is that Chuck, what's that guy? Chuck Sanders, Chuck Jones, the shoe guy, the guy with the name of the shoes. He's just, you know, kind of chubby. And anyway, but Kill Switch gets the win. Then we have our final, I guess you'd call it the main event of the pre-hour, Hook versus Wheeler Yuta. Hook is the FTW champion. I believe that Wheeler Yuta is also the Ring of Honor Pure Wrestling champion. Is that accurate? They have so many belts between AEW and the Ring of Honor, the Ghost of Ring of Honor, so it's hard to keep up, but I guess this is some type of feud. There was a major botch in this thing. I'm looking up one person, WrestlingInc.com. They missed the botch, which I caught. It was a decent enough match, but towards the end, if you did see this one, Hook was going to use a hockey stick. Basically, Yuta, I think, had a chair or some type of weapon, and Hook took a hockey stick and basically pulled Yuta's foot from underneath him. Now, when he did that, the hockey stick basically broke pretty unceremoniously, and you could tell that basically what happened was the hockey stick broke in half because it had been taped up. It had been already broke. It didn't really break. It was just exposed of being broken. It was pre-broken, and it was taped together pretty loosely. And then Hook goes into the ring, and he takes the broken hockey stick and he swings it on the back of his opponent, on Yuta, and he's trying, and like Yuta's trying to sell that it's a big break or a really painful experience to get hit with this broken hockey stick. Well, this is what was supposed to happen, folks, which I don't see on the write-up, and maybe other people caught it, maybe they didn't. But basically, that hockey stick was supposed to break over the back in a very loud manner. That's what was supposed to happen. Like basically, Hook was going to take that hockey stick, hook, so to speak, the foot of his opponent Yuta, and then go in the ring and smash the hockey stick, and it was going to make a big noise and a big crack, and we'd all be excited. But unfortunately, the hockey stick was just taped together too loosely, and it was exposed of being broken already. So to me, it really took the wind out of the match, because it seemed like the whole thing was headed towards this big hockey stick break. And it was basically a fart in church, a wrestle botch. I don't know if what's that thing, wrestle botch, or the videos, wrestle squish, or whatever it's called, the mistake, wrestle, what is it, wrestle crap, or wrestle screw, or wrestle botch, or whatever. But basically, it was not a good way to end the match, because it ended more or less on a missed spot, and they covered as best they could. But to me, it kind of exposed, not to say exposed the whole business, but just, it just was kind of the shits, as the wrestlers say. So then we finally start with the pay-per-view, and this was kind of interesting. My buddy Carl's checking in. Hi, Carl. How you doing? Carl's a big wrestling fan. He's done some videos with me here on the channel. We've talked about his experiences at WrestleMania 22. I'm good, Carl. We're just analyzing this wonderful show. I did think it was a pretty good show, Carl. I don't know if you saw it yourself, but it was in Nassau, in New York, Long Island. I know, Carl, I was just recommending to somebody, Carl, that they watch WrestleMania 22, the Triple H John Cena pay-per-view main event, because you were at that one. Christmas was okay, buddy. I mean, it wasn't the best Christmas. It wasn't the worst Christmas. I did take a road trip the day after Christmas to go to Inverness, Florida. I saw my buddy Chris Anino and his lovely fiancée, who's a female wrestler. And I did see the movie, what's that called? Anyone But You, which I did a nice review of on one Mike Messier YouTube channel. So thanks, buddy. I hope you had a good Christmas too. let's get to this next match. The first match of the pay-per-view, buddy, was a AEW All-Stars. I guess it was also a Continental Classic All-Star tournament. Actually, it was the wrestlers in this match all were in the tournament. So these were guys that basically did not get to the finals. It was everybody, besides a few guys, but Mox and Danielson and Miro and Andrade were not in this thing. But we had Claudio Castagnoli, Bryan Danielson, Mark Briscoe, and Daniel Garcia versus Brody King, Jay Lethal, Jay White, and Rush. Good match. I mean, I think it was kind of like if you ever saw that Survivor Series '95 where they had the wild card match and you had like Razor Ramon and Yokozuna and Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith. I'm trying to remember who they wrestled, but it was Ahmed Johnson was in that thing. I think Shawn Michaels was in that thing. But basically, they took like Gorilla Monsoon, took the heels and the baby faces, and he mixed them all up and he mashed them all up. Well, this kind of felt like that. I think it was supposed to be the gold versus the blue of this whole tournament. It was interesting that they put Bryan Danielson in the opening match. I did kind of think of this way, folks. Interesting that a guy like Jay White, Switchblade Jay White, I mean, wasn't he in the main event of the last pay-per-view? And here he is kind of jerking the curtain, as they say, in the first match on this one. And just kind of interesting how quickly a wrestler's stock can kind of raise and fall, you know what I mean? But I guess they all take it pretty much in stride. And Claudio Castagnoli, another guy who, I mean, he has done well in AEW, but it kind of feels like he's the same position he was in WWE for several years, which is he's in the mix, everybody loves him, but he never is really a main event guy. I mean, I could have seen Claudio, versus Eddie Kingston in this thing in the finals, but I think when we get to that, I'll talk about that. Bryan Danielson, interesting to see him. I mean, for these guys, I mean, I don't want to say it was a night off, but I mean, you certainly take less bumps. You get less physical abuse when you're in this big 8-person tag. And look, I think for what it was actually very good. I mean, I guess I'd give this thing 3.5 or 3 3/4 out of 5 if I had to judge it. I mean, for what it was, basically an exciting way to open up the show, the official show with some big names. It was fun. And, who gets the victory here? Garcia, Danielson, Briscoe, and Castagnoli get the victory. That group, the Blackpool Combat Society, it does kind of confuse me because it's like they still have that name, even though the guy that really brought that name to the table, Regal, is gone. He's been gone for over a year. Did you hear about the Beverly Hills Cop new movie, Axel Foley? I did hear about it, buddy. And I mean, over on one Mike Messier YouTube channel where I do my film reviews, I'll review it. Do I have any big feelings? I mean, I think the thing with these things, buddy, is we just have to wait and see. I mean, from what I understand, The Good Burger 2 was pretty not well received. That was like 25 years or 30 years in the making. The new Frasier show I watched, I thought it was actually fairly good. Like, I enjoyed it. I watched the first season of it. So I think with these, some of the Punky Brewster, I mean, like 4 or 5 years ago, there was this Punky Brewster reprise. I watched some of that, and I thought it was decent. So I think you just have to give these things, each case is going to be different. I mean, I think Eddie Murphy really is a funny guy. And it kind of feels like, as great as his career has been, there does feel like there's been some missed opportunities with him. I think I heard something about Eddie Murphy passing on a big film. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what that was. There was some huge role that Eddie Murphy passed on because he didn't think it would be a good movie. I'm trying to think of what it was. But anyway, the next match, buddy, back to this show. This was an interesting match. Miro versus Andrade El Idolo, which I don't think rings off. I mean, it doesn't roll off the tongue like so much honey. I mean, I'm not a Spanish speaker. I mean, maybe for people that do speak Spanish, that name is great. For me, it's kind of hard to remember and kind of hard to pronounce. So, I mean, I think maybe they could do something with that, and they could call him AEI for short or something. But these are another couple of guys that never really seem to maximize their full potential in WWE and don't seem to be maximizing their full potential in AEW. Now, Miro has had at least one TNT title reign. I was there at Daly's place when he beat Darby Allin for the title. people really are into Miro. I think people are really into Andre El Idolo. But I think both of these guys have just been not fully maximized. And it was kind of interesting to see them in this thing together. I'm not sure if either one was really supposed to be the baby face or heel. It kind of felt like a double heel match, although the crowd was more or less into Miro, which they always seem to be. And, CJ Perry, this is one thing I'll say, folks. When these wrestlers and their wives or their girlfriends or whatever, when they kind of bring their act into the ring, the wrestlers always seem to think that the fans care about their personal relationship, like being explored in the wrestling venue, and I don't. I at least don't. I mean, they've been doing this for a while. I mean, you go back to Jimmy Garvin and Precious, or different wrestlers, Macho Man and Elizabeth, and I think in the wrestler's mind, it's always very exciting for the fans to watch a real life. Triple H and Stephanie used to do this stuff. I think they're basically entertaining themselves. When you have, especially when you have a married couple like CJ and Miro, we know that they're going to go home together, and no matter what silliness and nonsense they do in the ring or outside the ring, when they go home, they're a perfectly lovable, loving couple. So, I guess for me, these spouting spouses, or these spatting spouse storylines are just kind of stupid. That being said, I mean, maybe, CJ Perry and Miro realize that, because they use this opportunity for CJ to interfere in the match and basically cost Andre the victory by breaking up his figure four leg lock hold on Miro. And then basically CJ, basically turns back to her husband. So, I mean, I think if they could just put her in the corner of Miro, I mean, I think we're still trying to recapture that magic from 2015 when Miro had the flag, and they were doing the whole, Russian-esque gimmick. I mean, whatever it was. I mean, I thought that was their both of their career peak. And I think that they should just be together and just try to keep CJ in the corner a little bit more. She is a very attractive woman. She has a lot of charisma. But Miro is such a great wrestler. It's sad to see him kind of get outshined. I'd like to see Miro have a better 2024. I think this could be just one of these things where it's drowning in their own talent pool. You know what I mean? Just so many wrestlers in AEW. Yes, WWE has the same problem. I mean, it's a good problem to have. It's better to have too many talents than not enough. Let's go to the next match. Toni Storm, the champion of the AEW World's Women title. Sorry, I'm getting a little coughed up. This is always interesting. Why do they have to have two women's singles titles in AEW? Why won't they have a tag team? I thought they should have a trios women's title instead of a tag team, but they have two women's singles titles that at times they seem equal. And on this particular show, the World Women's title goes first. Toni Storm with Luther versus Riho. This basically felt like a showcase for Toni Storm. Her timeless Toni Storm gimmick has really gotten over. This is the first time that I've seen Luther out there with her. Maybe I've been missing something. But my buddy Alex Clark is kicking in. I'm not sure if this is the Alex Clark I went to high school with. I think it's a different Alex Clark. But I did go to high school with a good friend of mine who had the same name, Alex. She sent Andre back to WWE. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. We'll get into that. We can get into that now if you want. That this is the end of the contract. Maybe for some of these guys had like an actual 12-month, calendar contract, meaning people were speculating about MJF. This is the end of 2023. I mean, do they have this whole pay-per-view just to? And then, hey, my buddy Alex is the same Alex. I'm looking at your profile pic there, buddy, and it's just so small on what I'm looking at, so I'm having a hard time seeing your profile. Alex and I was talking about Starrcade 88, the Lex Luger Ric Flair match, which Alex was over there to watch that, and basically that was a long time ago, 1988, December 26th. I think myself, Alex, our other friend Chris Bowles were over there watching Luger and Flair. I was saying that an early match on this show, Abaddon and Abaddon and Julia Hart reminded me of the Barry Windham Bam Bam Bigelow match from that Starrcade 88 show that we watched. So I don't know how good your memory is for that stuff, buddy. but I do remember that whole evening pretty well. I think we also had pizza that night too. So let's take a look. So Tony Storm with the timeless thing, she's using the black and white stuff. I thought that was pretty inventive. I mean, it's over with me. I mean, and also I should mention that another female talent is coming back, Serena Deeb, the professor. She had a promo that aired on the pre-show this night. I like Serena Deeb. I think she's great. She had a really interesting visual package with like her in a straitjacket and all types of stuff, comparing herself to Harry Houdini, that she's a magician. I thought I'd love to see Serena Deeb as a heel, maybe challenge a babyface Tony Storm. I think that would be a great contrast to styles, and I think both women work really well. Tony Storm's outfit even was kind of funny. Like she kind of has this old Mae Young or Fabulous Moolah outfit, not really accentuating her physical prowess as she used to when she had more skimpier outfits, but it was kind of a classy old school look. And I think this timeless Tony Storm thing, I'm on board with it. I think it's great. And guess what? I'm also a big Riho fan. I think people sleep on Riho. I think Riho is one of the best baby faces in pro wrestling, male or female. She actually sells. She actually, she's kind of an old spirit of Pedro Morales. I mean, when I say that, it's because Pedro and Riho are both undersized baby faces who take a lot of abuse and they come back and oftentimes they win. Not tonight for little Riho. Her body splash on Luther and then getting kind of thrown into a body slam on the floor. I think Riho just takes a lot of a punishment. If you think of like a Spike Dudley from ECW, I'm a big Riho fan. I think she's really cute as well, which doesn't hurt. So anyway, but Tony Storm keeps the title, as well she should. A lot of comparisons with timeless Tony Storm and Julia Hart. I can get into that. Basically, they're both women's champions in AEW. They're both heels. Are they on a collision course against each other, or should we keep them apart from each other? I think you keep them apart from each other and let some of these other women like Serena Deeb get back into the mix. And I think that both of them, Julia Hart and timeless Tony Storm, are crowd favorites. They're heels, but the fans like them. The next match was a fun one. Also, though, the second 8-person tag match on the same show, which seems a little interesting. I mean, there's so many talents that weren't on the show. I mean, you talk about the House of Black, their only representation, as far as I can tell, was Julia Hart. But let's take a look at this. Ricky Starks and Big Billy, the tag champions. See, I would have just liked to see them defend the titles, to be honest with you. I'm a big fan of traditional 2-on-2 tag team wrestling. So this 8-person tag, it didn't do much for me, folks. Ricky Starks, Big Billy, Power. You know what? I skipped a match. Sorry about that. Let me get back to this. Swerve Strickland and Dustin Rhodes. I know why I fell asleep during this match, guys, to be honest with you. When Swerve was doing the whole concrete brick thing, I just kind of tapped out. And I saw Swerve was like getting Dustin's going to fight, but I did fall asleep at the end of this thing. And I woke up in the middle of the next match, which is why I switched. And I guess Keith Lee was injured. A lot of people have been saying, oh, Keith Lee isn't doing much in AEW. But like I said before, some of these wrestlers like Keith Lee or even like Statlander, and I remember that, what's the guy, the Neville, the former Neville, Pac, he was always missing big pay-per-view matches because he had like green card issues with AEW and wrestling in the United States. So when you wonder about some of your favorite wrestlers like a Keith Lee, Pac, exactly, Alex. When you worry about some of your favorite wrestlers, well, why isn't this guy getting a push? Why isn't that guy getting a push? Well, it's like in Pac's case, he never had his fucking green card together or his work visa. And in Keith Lee's case, he's had some stuff health-wise with COVID and stuff, and he has to miss this big show. So, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily the promoter all the time is trying to screw over your favorite wrestler. It's just that your favorite wrestler, through their own fault or through no fault of their own, is just not dependable to actually show up and wrestle. So, I mean, there you go. But Dustin Rhodes, who I believe was saying that 2023 was like going to be his final year. I don't think they played that up tonight because he's probably going to wrestle into 2024 anyway. But Dustin Rhodes shows up. He puts over Swerve, and we're all happy. I think there was several wrestlers on this show, folks, like Swerve, like Tony Storm, like Julia Hart, that are doing so well in their current, push type of thing, that some of this stuff was just keep the momentum going. And some of these people like Riho and Abaddon, and in this case Dustin, they were just basically here to feed someone else. You know what I mean? So uh, the 8 man was fun. I mean, Sting has got his big retirement show coming up. That's actually going to be in the Greensboro Coliseum. I thought about getting a ticket, to be honest with you, but the thing is, I've always been a big Sting fan. Alex was there when we saw Sting and the Great Muta when we were both 6 months old. We saw them in the Baltimore Arena wrestle their first ever match. I actually got to meet Sting about 5 years ago. I went to it was called Big Time Wrestling in Massachusetts. I brought pictures of Sting versus Muta that my 6-month-old self took. I didn't give them, but I had Sting sign them for me, and I was kind of thinking, man, isn't he going to be impressed that my 6-month-old self took pictures of him and Muta in Baltimore? And Sting totally no-sold it, showed to me, a lack of enthusiasm for his own career. Who do I got for Sting's last match? Let me think about that for a second. I think it might be Jericho. And the reason why I say that is because Jericho several times has made a big deal about that him and Sting never wrestled against each other. Tonight, they wrestled with each other. I was there in Daly's place here in Jacksonville, Florida, there was a behind the scenes guy named Keith Mitchell who got like a retirement party in the ring, and Jericho and Sting were both there, and Jericho made a note, this is the first time that Sting and I have been in the ring together. So even though Jericho is kind of old too, I think here's another idea. It could be Jericho. Here's another choice. It could be Darby. It could be Darby Allin. I mean, we've seen very similar to Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels, but I think Sting, who's basically been the heater or the big buddy or the mentor to Darby Allin for the last, is it going on 3 years at this point? I think it would be kind of nice if Sting and Darby Allin really had a match. And if you go back, Alex, I don't know if you saw Darby Allin versus CM Punk when CM Punk came back to the ring to the wrestling ring for the first time in 6 or 7 years. Darby Allin made CM Punk look fantastic. And I do feel that Darby Allin, he's a smaller guy. He's 140 pounds. Let me just take a sip of water. But I'm telling you, Darby Allin is actually quite good. And I think that would make the most sense. I mean, I think that if you're talking about guys from Sting's generation, or even guys that were older or younger than him that he had big feuds with, there's really nobody around. I mean, I think if Ric Flair is officially done, because he does have the heart thing in his chest, I don't think I want to see Flair risk his life. Triple H obviously is with WWE, and he has the heart thing. And also, I mean, you could try to scrape up The Undertaker. I mean, The Undertaker is officially retired. I don't think he would go to AEW for a one-off, but you never know. I mean, that would be the match everybody wanted to see. Could Tony Khan, write a big enough check? Would he have to pay off McMahon? I mean, does Undertaker have some type of exclusivity to WWE? I mean, if they could pull that off, that would be pretty huge. Just throwing some random names out there. Goldberg, Bill Goldberg. I don't know. He's not very good, and he's older, and he's still not very good. And I don't think there's much of Sting and Goldberg did wrestle each other several times in WCW, but their matches weren't very exciting. Well, I mean, I was just thinking about Goldberg, but has Goldberg made a statement that he wants to be Sting's last match? I mean, if anything, I don't think they would have good chemistry, to be honest with you. I mean, Goldberg, you got to remember 3 or 4 years ago, he almost paralyzed The Undertaker. And I think, would Goldberg put Sting over? I mean, I think the whole thing with Sting's last match is Sting's pretty much got to win. I mean, I think if you had Darby versus Sting, you could have Sting put Darby over, and then they have a big hug because it's the, protege and mentor type of thing, But I don't see it with Goldberg. I mean, I just don't. I don't think it would be good. Let's put it that way. Would they do it? Could they do it? Sure, they could do it. I just don't think it would be particularly good. Thinking of Tully Blanchard. He's of those guys, like the old NWA, WCW guys. Tully Blanchard, although he's older than Sting, I saw him wrestle at Daly's Place 2 or 3 years ago with FDR. Tully still looked pretty decent, so he could probably do it. I don't know if that's a big box office thing. Is that big enough? Sting versus Tully Blanchard. They didn't really have a one-on-one rivalry. They had a lot of good tag team matches. I think you were there, Alex. No, you weren't actually. No, you weren't there for the '88 Bash when Sting and Nikita fought Tully and Arn. But basically, Tully Blanchard, you could kind of shoehorn him in if you wanted to. Arn can't wrestle. I'm trying to think of Vader would be great, but he's deceased, so he's not available. Same thing with Ravishing Rick Rude. Unfortunately, he's deceased. A lot of guys that I would have loved to have seen Sting. I mean, if you want to talk about the poetry type of thing, like who would be a poetic finish for Sting, it would be Flair, or Vader, or Rick Rude, or Ultimate Warrior. But of all those guys, the only one that's still alive is Flair, and he's got the heart thing in his chest. So I don't know. I think it's got to be Darby. I mean, I think it's basically comes down to Darby and Jericho. And I think who would be the better match? It would be Darby. Who would push for it more would be Jericho. A lot of our heroes are gone. I mean, it's kind of a shame. Some of them are holding on. I mean, Barry Windham is still alive. Lex Luger's still alive. They're obviously not wrestling. But yeah, I mean, this past year, 2023, Leaping Lanny Poffo passed away. The promoter from Memphis, Jerry Jarrett, passed away. And even some of the younger guys. Well, Terry Funk passed away, the guy that fought Ric Flair at the '89 Bash, and who else? Bray Wyatt. I mean, now we're at a point, buddy, where the first wrestling match that I ever saw, before I was even born, was Blackjack Mulligan versus Andre the Giant Texas Death Match. Well, I've lived long enough to see Blackjack Mulligan's son wrestle. Barry Windham. I've seen his son-in-law wrestle, Mike Rotundo, and I've seen Blackjack Mulligan's son-in-law's son, Mike Rotundo's son, wrestle and become world champion and then pass away. So, I mean, it's nuts. I mean, life is just crazy. And if you live long enough, you see a lot of people come and go, which is unfortunate. But, I mean, yeah, I've seen all three generations of that family wrestle in person. I've been seeing The Rock's daughter wrestle recently. I saw it when I was a kid. I used to see Rocky Soulman Johnson wrestle the Wild Samoans. Then I saw The Rock wrestle in the Attitude Era, and now I'm seeing his daughter, the Little Rock, or Pebbles, whatever she's called, at the NXT shows here in Jacksonville. I'll be going to a couple NXT shows in Jacksonville, March 2nd, and then somewhere, I think, in Gainesville. And I've been tempted to go down for the TV tapings because sometimes I get an offer to do that, and I haven't done that because you don't have a lot of control. Apparently, at the NXT tapings at Orlando at Full Sail, you have to park your vehicle and then take a bus to the studio. I'm pretty sure you're not in control of where you sit. You just kind of sit where they sit you. And I always like to sit on an aisle. I'm very particular about that. And I get really anxious if I'm in the middle of a row with people next to me. It's my huge shoulders, Alex. You know the feeling, buddy. We're big guys. Julia Hart, the champion, against Abaddon. TBS championship match. Biting is allowed. I guess that was an actual thing. Once again, I think I talked about this match earlier. I basically said I thought the crowd was very forgiving for this match. The crowd was the best part of this match. And Julia Hart's looks. I mean, let's be honest. She's a gorgeous woman. She's a gorgeous young woman. She's 22 years old. She's extremely pretty in a very conventional blonde-haired type of way. She's very cute, pretty, athletic. I mean, she's really got the whole thing going. If she stays in wrestling, she's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. If she decides to do something else, like acting or something, I think she'll be very successful. It's surprising to me that of the Varsity Blondes team from a couple of years ago in AEW, Gift Garrison, Brian Pillman Jr., and Julia Hart is the star. And Pillman had to go to WWE NXT and reinvent himself as Lexis King. But Julia Hart outshined those wrestlers. But she looked great tonight. I mean, she had the little heart outfit on. She's a heel. She's got sky blue. It's very Beautiful People-esque, like Beautiful People goes to Hot Topic. I mean, two gorgeous young women that I'm sure, male wrestling fans and female wrestling fans are really into these two together. They have a good contrasting look. They do look like the Mean Girls, the goth Mean Girls. It's a great combo. And basically, tonight, Abaddon, I was not impressed. Abaddon, I think she's got a cool look, but she kind of looked like a Christmas tree tonight, dressed in all green. Julia Hart was dressed in all red. It was I don't know if they did that on purpose, but Abaddon, who I have seen in person before, and when she's squashing somebody, she's great. When she's just beating the tar out of someone, Abaddon is Abaddon. But when she's actually in a match tonight on pay-per-view, it looked like she was asleep, to be honest with you. I was not impressed. And I mean, we know that it's predetermined and all that good stuff, but Abaddon did not have a good performance. I think Julia Hart carried the whole thing, and she looked fantastic doing it. So if you're Tony Khan, you're having Sting win on the way out or put someone over. I think, buddy, if it was me, I would somehow do the Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, I love you, I'm sorry, and basically Darby would get the victory over Sting in his final match, and they could totally do it in a way where nobody leaves upset, where they have a good 15, 20-minute match. I mean, Sting, I think, is 62, but he actually looks great when he's wrestling. I mean, they mostly does tag team matches, but I'm assuming for his last match, it would be a singles match. And I think he could throw around Darby, and then Darby gets a comeback, and then basically 15 or 20 minutes, I think they could pull it off. And I think they would be very safe with each other. And I think, to be honest with you, if I'm Tony Khan, and to be honest, that's the thing with AEW, Alex. I think that the wrestlers are kind of booking themselves, and for the most part. So I think that, I think Sting could go 15 for one match. And I think with a guy I think a lot of it is just crowd work. I mean, if you look at Larry Zbyszko matches from the 80s, Larry Zbyszko would have a 20 or 30-minute match, but he would have body contact for 7 or 8 minutes. And I think with the fans kind of losing their minds over this thing, and Darby, what's great about Darby Allin as a wrestler, I'm not going to speak for him as a human being because I never met the guy, but Darby Allin as a wrestler can make someone like CM Punk, who's coming back after 7 years, look great. He sells like hell. He makes everybody he wrestles look better, Darby, in my opinion. And I think he could do the same for Sting. And I think that somehow Darby gets the victory over Sting because it's the old rule of who's coming to work the next week. And I think if I were Sting, I would put Darby over. I'm not Sting. And, if I was Sting, I'd be a little more impressed if some guy named Mike Messier came up to him with photos of him wrestling the Great Muta from 30 years earlier and wanted to talk about it. But, obviously I'm not Sting, so I can't speak for the guy. But I think if Sting wanted to do for the business the right thing, he'd put young Darby Allin over. That's what I would do. We'll see. So Julia Hart retains the title. Moving on, this was the main event for me. This was not the final match of the night. This was not the official main event, guys, but this was my main event. I think these guys tore it up. And I hate to be one of those people that thinks, well, you have to have WWE experience to be a top wrestler. I don't believe that. But in this case, this would be evidence for that side of the argument because these guys tore it up. Christian Cage, Adam Copeland, TNT Championship, no DQ match. Christian Cage is having the best run of his career at, I think he's over 50 as well. And this match was just fantastic. I love Christian Cage's patriarchy group. Him as the father, Nick Wayne is one of his sons. His other son is Luchasaurus, who's been renamed Killswitch. And he's even banging the mom. He's even taking over the kid's mom here. And I don't know too much about that young wrestler guy, the Ken Wayne, whatever his fucking name is. But the mom, I think it's a perfect look for that character, because she is attractive, but she does kind of look a little frumpy and a little mommy. You know what I mean? Using mom as an adjective here. But I thought it was a great match, very dramatic, and basically this was like the best 50-50 booking you can think for. So when you say the ending, Alex, are you talking about the fire table thing? Because they did kind of I think the fire in the table and the crowd was chanting for TLC all night. So obviously, a very WWE history laden audience because they're really doing the callback to the whole Christian Edge, Hardy Boys, Dudley Boys, the TLC matches from the early 2000s. When why not? I mean, 23, 24 years later, those matches hold up. Um, if I had been there, I wouldn't be cheering TLC for something from another company. That's just me. But I thought, that the crowd appreciated the history of this match. These two wrestlers have been friends since childhood. I think one of them was raised without a father. Was that Edge? Was that Copeland didn't really have a father in his life? So that I think Christian Cage's dad kind of became like his pseudo father, or one way or the other, that was the situation. They went to WrestleMania 6 together. They're basically brothers. They're not biological brothers, but they're very tight, which is nice to see that their careers have intertwined so much. They came back kind of like within a year of each other. I mean, and Christian Cage has always kind of been in the shadows of Copeland. It was surprising to me when Copeland got the victory and got the title. I guess I wasn't too surprised. But then Killswitch comes out, the former Luchasaurus. He cashes in he cashes in the pseudo Money in the Bank, the AEW pseudo TNT title match in the bank stipulation. But then Christian demands that he hand it over to him, hand him the contract. Killswitch doesn't want to do it. He's reluctant. They did seem to have their choreography a little bit botchy in this situation. It looked like Christian was meant to hold out his hands and then wait for a beat. And then Killswitch kind of reluctantly gives him the contract. It seemed like Killswitch kind of rushed that. So they didn't have that. And here's the thing. I don't think Killswitch is very good, to be honest with you. I think Killswitch is perfect in this role as the heater, as the dumb thug, as the guy being taken advantage of by Christian Cage. I think the problem comes when it does come. Eventually, they're going to want to turn Killswitch babyface again. And when they do, he's not very good. I mean, he's got a great look. Luchasaurus Killswitch has an awesome look. The mask is cool. I even like the name Luchasaurus. I like the whole idea of the wrestling dinosaur, or the guy that believes he's a dinosaur. The tattoos. I mean, he's got a very scary presence. I've seen a picture of Luchasaurus Killswitch without the mask. I can't remember what his face looks like because it's just kind of non-memorable. But my point is, I think Luchasaurus Killswitch should stay in this position with Christian Cage for as long as possible. It would be interesting if and when they bring Jungle Boy back, because Jungle Boy, obviously, would he join this troupe? I mean, would he have some type of deal where, he now that Jungle Boy is a heel himself, he somehow agrees with Christian Cage? Does he become like the nephew or the older brother to this Wayne kid? I heard about Luchasaurus was on Big Brother, and obviously he did that without the mask. I just think he's one of these guys that, if you've ever seen a Luchasaurus match, even in the tag team matches, his style is what I call choppy. I say the same thing about Bianca Belair. At least 2 or 3 years ago, I think Bianca has improved. But there are certain wrestlers where you can almost see like their mind is working out what they're going to do next. I call it a choppiness, and I think with Luchasaurus, it's like he's got a. I couldn't do any better, to be honest with you, but I'm not the guy getting paid to wrestle. But I mean, Luchasaurus, you can see him stopping and thinking before he does his moves. Bianca Belair in WWE used to have the same thing. She's gotten a lot smoother. There's wrestlers like a Ricky Steamboat that you say are smooth. Well, Killswitch Luchasaurus is the opposite of smooth. He is choppy. So therefore, I don't think he can ever be a singles champion, or should be. I think he's going to stay right where he is. I'm glad that Alex agrees with me. It's kind of like when you think about a guy who's not an example of this would be the Big Boss Man from back in NWA days, National Wrestling Alliance, WCW. The Big Boss Man was the Big Bubba Rogers for the Midnight Express. He was their bodyguard. He was Jim Cornette's bodyguard. He was learning, but when he got over to first he became the UWF champion as a singles, and he did fine.
but he really showed that he knew what the hell he was doing when he got to the WWF and feuded with Hulk Hogan and feuded with everybody and Jake the Snake, and then eventually turned babyface. And Big Boss Man, by the time his career was done, he was regarded as one of the best big men ever. And I don't think Luchasaurus, at least what I've seen, he's never going to be that guy. He's never going to be as good as a Big Boss Man. Maybe it's a thing where just the modern wrestling, especially with AEW, these guys are having what, 25, 30 matches a year. I mean, these guys are getting full-time salaries for part-time work. To be honest with you, the biggest victors for AEW wrestling is the actual AEW wrestlers. They wrestle so infrequently. I mean, the guys that are probably the busiest are guys like Moxley and Bryan Danielson that are wrestling probably 60 or 70 matches a year at the most. I mean, I'd say probably less than that, probably 40 matches a year at the most for those guys. And I think that they probably wrestle twice a month for AEW. That's why you see Moxley doing all these other dates, for Game Changer Wrestling and stuff like that, because Moxley wants to wrestle. My point is that Luchasaurus is not getting the reps in, as they say. He's not getting enough matches in where he's going to learn. I guess he's just not a natural wrestler. He's got the look of a natural wrestler, but he doesn't have the technique or the smoothness. And I think that if Luchasaurus was as active as the Big Boss Man was in 1988, wrestling 5, 6, 7 times a week, Luchasaurus might be really excelled. But because he's wrestling in a company that doesn't do a lot of house show matches, and because he's not featured as a wrestler all the time, Luchasaurus is not getting his time in the ring. And that's why I just don't think he's that good. He's a good presence. He's a great character. I just don't think that he's that good inside the ropes. Anyway, that's my whole deal on that. But Christian Cage cashes in, gets the big spear, gets his title right back. I thought this was beautiful booking, beautiful 50-50 booking. Both guys win. Adam won the match. He won the title, but then he lost the match. He lost the title. He lost the immediate rematch. It reminds me of when I think Bryan Danielson or Daniel Bryan beat John Cena at SummerSlam, whatever year that was, 2013. And then they turn around and they have Randy Orton come out and cash the Money in the Bank and beat Daniel Bryan right away, right? So, I mean, I think that that's really smart booking. So there you go. Christian Cage loses and regains the title all in one night. I'm going to have to wrap this up at the 60-minute mark, guys, because I want to be able to rebroadcast this. So we got about 7 minutes left. If you have any more comments, Alex, or anybody, please comment now, and I'll get to them otherwise. And if you're commenting on Facebook or Twitter and you're not seeing me respond, it's because I'm not seeing them. You have to click over to YouTube, One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan channel. If you're seeing this in the replay, put the notifications on, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Our next match, Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston, the Continental Classic final for the Triple Crown Championship. Another championship I don't think they need, or 3 championships I don't think they need, but they did have a hell of a match. Moxley is one of these guys that every once in a while he'll lose some upset. He lost to Lance Archer in a Texas Death Match on Dynamite. Moxley is one of my favorite wrestlers these days. Kingston, I think they dropped the ball with him 2 years ago. I think they should have had him beat CM Punk on that pay-per-view, whenever that was. I thought Kingston had so much momentum. He was writing an article for some magazine. I don't know if it was Sports Illustrated or something, but Kingston was really over 2 years ago. He still is, and he was in New York, his home state. But I just feel that with Kingston, I feel like they should have pushed him like this 2 years ago. But the match was brutal. I mean, the chops people will be talking about for a while. Basically Eddie Kingston gets the win. They were chopping the shit out of each other. Kingston gets the final death blow, and it's all handshakes and hugs afterwards. I thought it was a really good match, and I thought like the whole Continental Classic thing, I did not see every single match, but I understand that these matches were very high level, mostly clean finishes. They did have a story arc with Kingston. It did seem to be a successful tournament. So maybe it justifies these 3 belts. I mean, the belt was really nice with the crown and everything.
So I thought that was fine. I mean, it was good. Now we have our main event. The pre-main event clip video package for MJF I thought was great. It was different. It was people from Long Island. Basically, felt like any type of community where everybody's tight and close. They have that Northeast thing going. I have been to Long Island once in my life. I saw Brian Danovich, who was a Tough Enough wrestler. I hung out with Brian Danovich. We were talking about doing a wrestling podcast together. And I hung out with Brian at his home, and I got to see Long Island. And then 2 weeks later, Brian Danovich passed away. So it's very sad because he was a good guy who loved wrestling. So whenever I think of Long Island, I think of Brian Danovich. You can see some of his videos on this channel. Just look, Dano and Mike Messier is sad. Young guy, too. So Samoa Joe and MJF. Kind of had the feeling that this might go down like this because Samoa Joe is getting this match on December 30th. We've been hearing about this bidding war of 2024 forever. Is MJF losing on his way out? At the end of this, I have to cut to the chase because we're running short on time, but I thought it was, I didn't like the way that MJF wrestled in this thing, trying to do the kangaroo kick. I thought he was going kind of overboard with the babyface stuff. It did seem like Joe dominated. I think what they were trying to do with this match, guys, was Ivan Koloff beats Bruno Sammartino in Madison Square Garden. I think MJF, in his mind, he's thinking, well, if I'm going to lose, I'm going to get my ass kicked and look like I shouldn't be a baby face, because it did feel like he got dominated, and his big chance to win, basically Adam Cole couldn't find the pinky ring, right? So then the ring that he would have used to knock Samoa Joe out, Samoa Joe gets the advantage, and Samoa Joe gets the tap out or the pass out. He didn't tap out, he passed out to the choke, and we have a new champion. So people were surprised, and then we have this whole thing with the devil and these four guys in masks. Now, I'm happy to say that I didn't recognize for a few seconds who's the bald guy in the devil group, and it was actually Mike Bennett, who played my brother in the movie horror film The Manor, which I basically co-wrote. So it's kind of interesting. I have this connection to Mike Bennett, Matt Taven, Wardlow, which I was kind of predicting he was my choice to be the devil, and then Roderick Strong, and they're all kind of the underlinks to the main devil, Adam Cole. And apparently it seems like Adam Cole's foot is fixed now, although I thought the surgery that he had was better or bigger, I should say. That I thought the surgery was a bigger deal than it was, apparently. And the guy down the block won. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I might be missing the joke on that one. But basically, I thought it was a decent match. I thought the big question is, did they kill the town? I mean, by having the hometown babyface lose this match, did they kill Nassau for the AEW Nassau fans? I don't think so, because I think the fact that they had the devil reveal and then it was a big storyline thing, I think that will get the fans to come back. I think maybe the bigger question is MJF on his way out of AEW or not? And I think that it could go either way based on this result, because you have a whole year of him chasing after Samoa Joe, but he has to get through Adam Cole and the Devil Group first. And now we kind of know that there was more than one Devil. It's Adam Cole, but he's got these other four guys. And it's, what was Adam Cole's group in NXT? The Undisputed Era, the Kingdom, Matt Taven, Roderick Strong, Mike Bennett. Will they bring Maria Kanellis back in? You can see my interview with Maria Kanellis on this channel. Mike and Maria are a real-life couple. They did very poorly in WWE a few years ago. It's nice to see Mike have a second chance, and now he's in a main event program. So he's kind of in the main event heel clique. I mean, we've seen many heel cliques in AEW, going back to the Inner Circle, the Pinnacle, and now we have this group. Yeah, it's interesting, buddy. I don't know, Alex. It's really hard to say, is MJF staying or not? I kind of have a feeling, I mean, it's kind of goofy, but I think he's got to be there through at least May.
because I think they will have to do something with this storyline. But I mean, if he was going to leave, now would be the time. Well, guys, I got to wrap this thing up. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll probably do another stream on this soon, but let's call it a night. MikeMessier.com. Thanks for checking in. I give the show a 9 out of 10 overall.